Hi, Clutter Fairy fans, and Happy New Year. This is the Clutter Fairy Weekly for January 4th, 2022. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. Happy New Year to you. I hope it started out great already. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is a webcast and podcast that digs deep into the clutter that piles up between you and the life you want to be living. We explore the habits and behaviors that lead to clutter, and we suggest strategies to slow the accumulation, reduce the collection, and comfortably manage the stuff we decide to keep.
If you're new to our Zoom meeting, we want to let you know that you can share your comments and questions via the chat feature, and I'll try to make sure Gayle addresses them before we move on to another topic. You can also use the raise hand feature if you'd like to make a comment or ask a question yourself via audio or video. We're also streaming the webcast live on Facebook, so you can share your questions and suggestions and comments there, and I'll share them with Gayle. We're going to start, as we usually do, talking about our last weekly tittle. That was the last weekly tittle of 2021,
which was called a long time ago.
It was weeks and weeks ago, which was called Holding Pattern. The assignment was to execute the first steps to prepare for taking a holiday break from a current active organizing project. Let's hear from our participants in Zoom and Facebook. Did anyone put a project on hold over the holiday break? And if you did, have you managed to restart it yet? Please let us know in the comments. Share your progress with us. We didn't get any YouTube comments specifically about that tittle. I think probably people had other things that they were busy with. I don't know. But I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who piped in with suggestions for versions of A Christmas Carol that I had never heard of. I can't believe how many there are. I ran out of holiday season before I managed to watch them all, but I'm saving a list for next year's viewing plans.
It's definitely the holiday experience. There's always too much fun to do before your holiday is over. And it was really quite shocking how many people said, oh, try this one, try this one, try this one. The list was really long. I don't know what you're going to be watching A Christmas Carol for many seasons to come off of that list.
Yeah, definitely. Linda, who's with us on Facebook, said, Happy New Year. And she chose to declutter an item for the day of the month, 1 through 31 in December. My gift to myself sent almost 500 items down the road. Wow. So I think what she's saying is one thing on December 1st, two things on December 2nd, etc.
Wow.
That is a huge accomplishment.
Yay. What an exciting thing to do. And it must have been, when you're getting down to the end, it must have really gotten interesting to try to get, I have to get 29 today. I have to get 30 today. I have to get 31 today. How awesome.
I bet Linda was really looking forward to New Year's.
And I can't imagine how the idea of getting past 500 objects really is a big milestone. It's a huge amount, and it must feel like so much weight has been shed. Like you can't take 500 things out of your house and not go, whoosh, oh my God, that was so much that was bothering me that's now out of the house. That's really wonderful. Congratulations.
Jane said, I gave myself permission to slow down decluttering. Boxes still needed to go, though. I put off other deliberate decluttering. And Jane, our follow-up question on that is, have you revved it back up? Joyce said, yes, paperwork. She put paperwork on hold, and no, I haven't restarted. I need to, but don't want to.
This is the ultimate get back into your life after the holiday problem, right? Like being on holiday and focusing on all of the fun stuff and ignoring the stuff that's you're supposed to be doing is so much more fun than going back to all of the things you have to do. And so there's always a little, you got to get the train rolling down the track again.
It's always a surprise to me.
The week one problem.
It's always a surprise to me to find out that binge watching stuff on Netflix and eating lots of candy and cookies and chocolate is more fun than my ordinary life.
Right? If only all we had to do is go to movies and go to favorite restaurants and see our friends. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Oh, sorry, guys. This is the cold bucket of water on your head in bed to remind you that we are now in January and we have to get back to it. And that's why we're here. We're here to help you do that. And so hopefully this is week one of many more this week that will help you get back into it. And, we're always here. So if it takes you a week or 2 or 3 to get back into it, we'll still be here trying to help you. Okay.
Bonnie said, in preparation for new carpet, which is coming mid-February, I did put the decluttering on hold. I had made great progress, but lots left to do before the install. We were out of town for 2 weeks, and I hope to be back on track this weekend.
And I guess you'll just have to be very strategic about which things you're going to try to do before they come to mess with the carpet, because you don't want to open up a big can of worms that you can't get control of again before it has to be out of the way for the carpet guys. So just be very careful how much you unpack, literally and figuratively, how much you explode before you have to clear it all off for them to move everything around. So hit some things that are easy.
Yes. Joyce said, decluttered Christmas ornaments again this year as I decorated. And Nan said, Ed, can you at some point share your list of Christmas Carol versions? I'd love to put that in my Christmas file for next year. So I will work on that. I'll put that on my to-do list, because they're all easy to find right now. So,
and we can put it in the show notes, right?
Yeah, we'll announce it when we do put it online.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get to our main topic. Are some things objectively clutter, or is calling something clutter just a personal judgment? It's hard to solve a problem that isn't clearly defined. So we're going to talk today about definitions. It's important to get clear about what we mean by clutter. Today, we're going to examine several definitions we use to identify and categorize clutter. And we'll look at how our understanding of the word impacts our approach to organizing.
Basically, what we call clutter in air quotes, is all about context. Look at the background we're using for the Zoom meeting, for example. To most of us, this image probably looks like an incomprehensible jumble of math or science or something. But if you're listening on the podcast, you can take a look at the show notes to see the background we're talking about. We might be able to think back to long ago math or science classes and recognize a few elements of the design that's on the screen here. It might look vaguely familiar, but it would take specific expertise or understanding to really know what's going on here. And even a mathematician might look at this and say, I can't make sense of this, what I'm seeing, without seeing the whole picture, because some of it's clipped off the edges and I don't have the whole picture. This image is a decent analogy for clutter. Even though I'm an organizing expert, I can't just look at a situation in a client space and instantly know what's clutter and what's not. I have to get to know the client a little bit, their lifestyle, their habits, their goals, the people they share their space with, before the patterns start to become clear. Then I can start to offer help, pointing out particular stuff and saying, this doesn't serve the life you want to be living. The context is critical for identifying and helping people deal with their clutter. And even when we're dealing with our own stuff, it's easy to lose the context of things over time. We grow out of things, our interests change, our habits change, and what was once essential turns gradually to trash without our even noticing. Stuff starts out as very important and ends up being clutter later. The dictionary definition of clutter is things in an untidy or disorganized state. But the dictionary neglects to tell us what untidy or disorganized means. Some things we can agree are clutter. If you have trash around your house that's not in the appropriate trash can, then I think we can agree that's clutter. Random paper that's on the floor, open shipping containers, which I'm sure as of the past holiday season, there's a whole bunch of. The wrapping from around products, food and drink containers that got left behind where they were used, especially if you have a teenage boy in the house. Another definition of clutter is broken things. Like, here's the tool with a frayed power cord. Things that are broken and you're not willing or not able to fix it, then it's really clutter. Another type of clutter are things that affect your health and safety. Your items may be useful, but the excess of them turns them into a hazard or makes it difficult to clean around. So then it's becoming clutter. It can also become clutter when the stuff gets in the way of using something, like the stuff that sits on the stairs and prevents you from walking safely on the whole of the stairs. You might define clutter as things that cause you pain or grief, things you don't want to be reminded of, but you keep them out of a sense of obligation or responsibility. Sometimes your sentimentality has you keep things that cause you grief. When the objects are just there because you can't face dealing with them, or they remind you of a horrible time in your life, then they can be clutter because they're not really there to support who you are now, and they don't make you feel good. They don't remind you of good things, and you end up with things that are in the house that are really clutter because they make you feel terrible. You might define clutter as when the stuff is in a disarray that keeps you from actually finding anything when you want it, or when you have so much stuff, even if it's organized in some way, that you can't find anything or remember in some general way what you actually own. It can be clutter even if it's organized. It may be organized in a way that you're living okay with it. You are okay having it be there, but it can still be clutter.
That's sort of the story of paper for a lot of people. I think you have some kind of filing system, and even the stuff that hasn't made it into your filing system is corralled into somewhere, a controllable volume.
Yeah.
But if you don't know, if you've lost track of what the contents are of the filing cabinet or the boxes you're saving, it sort of all becomes a mixture of some bit of usable and a whole lot of clutter.
Exactly. And a file cabinet is a perfect example. Usually people work really hard to fill the file cabinet with the files and the labels and everything, and they get it all in there. And then the file cabinet is full and they can't add anymore. You can't get any more pieces of paper in, or at least not in any volume. You can shove one or two more pieces in, but it's completely full. And then it sits there for a decade because you organized it and it makes sense. And you never go back and churn the paper. You know, don't take out the stuff that's old. You don't update. You don't get rid of things that no longer matter. You don't get rid of the manuals for the stuff that you don't own anymore. And so the stuff sits there and over time slowly becomes clutter because it loses relevance over time. And then you don't go back and clear it out. So what was in the moment you created it, a very purposeful filing cabinet with all these open files that are great, 10 years from now won't be great anymore. It will have become clutter when you weren't looking. You can define clutter as things in your life that represent decisions you can't or won't make. So maybe you don't want to admit, I'm not going to ski again, so I don't need the ski equipment. Or I'm not going to lose 150 pounds, so I don't need to keep 4 sizes of clothing in my closet. Often the decisions that have to be made about whether it should stay or whether it should go is ultimately a decision about whether it's still going to be there or not. And deciding that that ship has sailed, that possibility is gone, that experience is no longer age appropriate. Like, yeah, I'm not going skiing anymore. I did when I was younger, but I am not in shape that would allow me to manipulate skis now. I would get 2 feet down and I would be injured. So if I was somebody that had a bunch of ski equipment, I would have to be letting it go. And if you're somebody that keeps stuff from a life that you used to live, an interest that you used to have, and you haven't quite faced that this is no longer part of your life, this part of your life has changed, you have evolved, things have gotten different, it has become clutter and you quite haven't faced it yet. it's sitting out there being clutter, waiting for you to make that decision that I need to let this stuff go. You can also define clutter as too much of a good thing. I had a client who hired a designer, and she used all of the client's many, many collections to decorate the house. The finished house was unbelievable. It was fabulous, but it was so busy. It was way too busy for my taste personally. There was stuff on every surface and all over the walls. It was an amazing thing to see. And the decorator really put it together so that it looked like an art piece. And the house was very clean and it was very well cared for. It was constantly, there was a maid there cleaning it. The homeowner put things away, kept it neat. That wasn't the issue. They used the whole house. So it was all just a matter of the decor. The client loved it, that there was stuff on every surface and stuff on every wall and stuff on every cabinet and available space to hang and swing. And I just found it overwhelmingly busy, and it was perfect for her, but not for me, even with the artful arrangement. So from that standpoint, it was decor to my client, but it was cluttered to me. So we all have a level of visual stimulus that's okay, and a level that's too much. At some point, when our stuff crosses that threshold of this is too much visual stimulation, it becomes clutter for us personally, even though it might not be for the next person.
Kind of related to that point, Gayle, Karen, who's with us on Facebook said, funny how it took me 2 years to really recognize all of my clutter instead of what I first thought was color. Does that make sense?
What she thought of as color,
right,
which was decoration and design and art, was really clutter. And it was probably because it wasn't that you put it all up at once, right? Like you kept adding things that you thought were cool and fabulous, and the collection just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then there was a point where it crossed a threshold for you and it stopped being art and color and entertainment and collection, and it became too much to see. And I think the idea of seeing it is an important measure to think about. If you look at a space and it makes your brain melt, if you look at a space and you feel completely overwhelmed, if you look at something and you think, there's too much going on here, so I can't even make my brain work. I can't see the details. I can't tell what's going on. Then you're describing the point at which what's in front of you has become too cluttered for you to cope with. And we talk a lot about trying to face, where do I get started when I feel overwhelmed? And we've addressed that a lot in our discussions here, but it's reflecting that there's a point at which we all have more than we can mentally manage and look at and still make our brains work. And so if you are in that point, you're recognizing, okay, I have now, in terms of volume and visual stimulus, I've crossed the threshold and my brain can't take it anymore. And at that point, it becomes clutter. And then when you go to thin it out, reduce what you're looking at, create some white space, create some air space inside on walls. I think of it as white space. In cabinets, I think of it as air space. When you create some negative space that doesn't have something in it, then you're giving your brain a place to rest and a place to relax for a second. And as you go to declutter, you start creating those negative spaces. You start creating that white space on the wall and the airspace in the cabinets. And you end up feeling that sense of relief of, oh, now this isn't too overstimulating for me. Now this is something I can look at and still see the details. I can still tell what's here. I can still process what's in front of me and know what to do with it, what's next, where something's supposed to go, where I can go find what I need. That everybody has a different level of how much they can look at and not have their brain melt. And this is why the definition of clutter moves up and down the scale depending on who's looking at it. Another definition of clutter is anything that causes difficulty, inconvenience, or harm to other people in the household besides you. So no matter how beautiful, useful, or special it is, If it's over someone else's threshold of tolerance for clutter, it becomes clutter to them, even if it's not clutter to you. Part of living with someone is realizing that your ideas of what is clutter are different, and everybody has to make compromises to coexist. So a good definition of clutter really has to be negotiated among all the decision-making members of the household. And, that doesn't mean that the person that is the most minimalist gets to make all clutter go away, and the person that is super collector gets to keep all things. You absolutely have to compromise. And so that means everybody's a little uncomfortable in compromise. The person that wants it more minimal is going to have more things to look at than they probably like. And the person that likes to collect is not going to be able to collect as much as they would wish. So unless you live alone, you're going to have to compromise everybody's visual landscape so that they can see and not be completely overwhelmed or shut down by their environment.
Okay, we have more comments, but before we do, we have a lot of new people with us today, and so I want to not neglect any of the announcements that I frequently neglect. Okay. So I want to remind those who are with us live that we also have a YouTube channel with more than 180, probably coming up on 200 videos on lots and lots of organizing topics. Visit cfhou.com/YouTube. While you're there, subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon next to the subscribe button if you'd like to get notified when we post new content. I also want to take a moment to say special thank you to Rachel and Jane for becoming our newest Patreon supporters. If you would like to help support our efforts with a recurring monthly donation of any size, please visit cfhou.com/Patreon, Patreon. Your contributions help us offset the costs of producing the weekly webcast and also help us fund new projects that we're working on. Thank you for your support, Jane, Rachel, and all our generous underwriters.
We appreciate it so much. We really do. We do this as a business expense of the Clutter Fairy, and we really love doing it, but we appreciate that the audience supports us in this way. So thank you so much.
Okay, Maria in Haifa has a comment. She says, the worst kind of clutter I generate is reminders, AKA stuff left on desks and shelves, so I remember to deal with it. Like paperwork or supports for a shelf I want to fix or school jacket I need to return to the store. Ugh. I will eventually find more useful ways to remember these tasks, but it doesn't come easy when you have ADHD. I've
heard ADHD people say to me that they like the idea of stickies on the front door to remind them to do things as they leave the house, because they're in the process of getting ready to leave, they forget things. So they keep stickers that basically are lapping over the edge of the door so that when the door is open, the sticker is hanging out over the edge of the door as a immediate visual cue. Don't forget to take the blah, blah, blah with you. And also putting those things in your path on the way out of the house. So like if this is something that you have to return and this is something that you have to go drop off, you're trying to drop it off at a friend's, and this is something that you need to go buy, then having a list of things with you on the phone or in some kind of note-taking app that you have access to wherever you are, so that when you find yourself standing in the store, you can go, oh, there was something I was supposed to get. You don't have to remember what it is. You just have to go look on your list and see what's on the list. And when you leave the house, here's the lineup along the pathway in front of the door of the things that need to go with you out of the house into the car. And doing those things the night before so that they're ready when you get up and are getting out the door means that you don't have to scramble to do it all in your limited amount of time before you leave. And ADHD people, I think, do better prepping the night before so that however much time it takes to get it prepped, you can get to a completion point, line it up, and then go to bed and be okay. Just a suggestion. And the idea that if you're ADHD, then your coping mechanisms are different. And you do need to have reminders and alerts instead of randomly having them be around the house. Part of it is figuring out a way for you to capture those things and have the reminders and have them be with you. And here's the objects that are going to have to go out of the house. Here's the objects that are projects that I'm waiting to do in the house. There's basically creating some systems for you to track and keep up with the things that you're trying to remember. We all have a problem with that.
Yeah, I'm really bad about mixing the categories too, and mixing together things that require different sorts of action or activity. So, there's the card that came in the mail that I hold on to as a reminder to buy the tickets to the event that I want to attend. But then there's also the little broken part from the refrigerator that is, or from the dishwasher, that's a reminder to go see if I can find a replacement part. And then all the flat things collect together, and it's really easy to say, well, those are all these are pieces of paper that need attention, so the parts of the mail that I didn't get to can also go in that. And then before you know it, it's scary jumble of paper growing into a stack. And the thought process at the start was, oh, well, this is just going to take me a minute, so this piece of paper can sit here until I find that minute. But pieces of paper tend to congregate.
Well, and evaluating whether an object is a to-do item or not, and then keeping the paper or part that support that to-do item is a different process than actually doing anything. So part of what you have to add into your routine is accumulating all of the stuff that you have to worry about and think about, and making that list or filing them in a bucket or putting them in the bin that is projects at home, or whatever your system is. Finding the items, identifying them, and parking them somewhere is a process that is not the same as ordering the part on the fridge. Then when you sit down at the computer, then you go and look at the pile of mail that you made that requires you to go online and do something like buy tickets or order a part. And that is how you circle back and actually do the stuff. But you have to remember that creating the list of things you have to do and parking the pieces that are related to it somewhere is in itself a project that you have to do in addition to all the projects you're trying to keep track of. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, and it puts me in mind of getting things done, the David Allen approach to time and task management. And that piece of paper is only a reminder to put the task on a to-do list, not a reminder to do the task. And once I've put it on a to-do list, it can go into a folder of pieces of paper that are associated with an actionable item. And the separate stuff, like the bits of today's mail I didn't get to, should be in a place of their own, where I'm thinking about, David Allen talks a lot about the notion of context.
Mm-hmm.
And there are things I have to do sitting at my computer, like looking up that dishwasher part on the Sears spare parts
ticket,
website,
paying the bill,
but
all that.
But sorting and disposing and recycling paper mail does not require the computer,
mm-hmm.
does not require the same level of energy, does not require the internet connection, does not require my best brain power,
your best focus.
Yeah. And then a separate context too is the physical things that can't go in a file, but there could be a tray in a drawer somewhere that is where I keep those, the physical bits and pieces that have to be kept for some reason.
The project, I need to hang this shelf. I bought this towel rack I'm going to install. I have a new organizer to put into the closet, All
Right.
those things become projects that require either you do them when you got it, or you have to put them on the list of things to do and park them somewhere until you get to it.
And I think the mistake I make, and that I suppose a lot of people make, is letting that making that whole big thing be a reminder. And it should just be your reminder to put it on the list. And then as soon as it's on the list, it can go out of sight somewhere, as long as you're diligently attending to your list.
And sitting in the project bucket.
Yeah.
Because when you finally get around to hanging the shelf, then you're going to be going, where did I put those brackets? What happened to the shelf? I forgot what I did with it. But if you have a parking space for projects waiting to be done, then you can go to the project space and go, okay, it should be in here. Cross my fingers. Oh, look, it's there. Hopefully you find it, right?
Right. Emily Sue says, the hardest thing to do for me is designating something I care about as irrelevant when the best thing for my situation is to give it up. Will I really pick up sketching again? It's not a priority in my life. Maybe down the road, just not now.
But getting through sketching, I mean, you can give up things related to sketching and it won't be a huge impediment for you to restart. If there comes a moment where you decide, okay, that's not really my drill now, but 5 years from now, suddenly sketching is going to be how you cope with something. It's going to be how you process something. It's your newly inspired creative mechanism. And so you can certainly pick it back up again in time. And in the meantime, what you've saved for sketching can go out and let someone else use it for sketching for a while. Give it to an art teacher and let them give it to students so that it can be used in the moment now. And when you're ready again, there will always be a way for you to pick it back up.
Lynn asks, is this recorded where we can go back over this later and write notes? And so I'm guessing Lynn is one of our newer participants. And yes, we record all of these, and we record our Zoom meetings and lightly edit them and put them on YouTube, usually later the same day or the next day. And so would you show the YouTube sign again?
Yes.
Our channel is cfhou.com/YouTube.
That puts directly to our channel.
Yeah, that will get you right to our channel. QAnon Diversity Outreach Rep is a participant in Zoom. That's quite a title. I've had so many hobbies through the years, but I still keep all of the stuff associated with those hobbies. I get totally paralyzed when I face getting started.
A lot of crafty people do.
What's a way in?
The way in is to look at your various types of craftiness. What kinds of art have you gotten into? And evaluate them for, I am still doing it. I can see myself doing it soon. I'm not doing it right now. And if you decide that you're not doing it right now, then, and it's not on your radar, or you tried it and you hated it or whatever. Sometimes we try a craft and we don't have the patience for it, or it's the skills that are needed don't feel fun to us. It's no judgment about whether or not you're good at it or not. We all like to do different things. So if you've got things that you've tried and you don't think you're going to do right now, or you're not going to do for a while, I usually tell people to take the context, take all the contents that would support that craft, peel off the super expensive tools that you bought, things that you've are very specialty items that you spend a bunch of money on to get something really special. That the basic tools, the ones that everybody uses, the things that are inexpensive, let those go. And then the materials, if you've invested in some really expensive, I bought this paper and it was super expensive paper, or this is the basic supply. So let all the basic supplies go, keep the super expensive stuff. And in a small volume, if you have a whole volume of super expensive stuff, then we still want to shrink it down by volume as well. And then you can make a little box of, this is the starting set. This is the little treasured pieces of me working in this craft area. and box it and label it, and you can put it away. Instead of keeping all of the supplies, you keep a concentrated version of, if I wanted to restart, I'd want to have this expensive tool again. I'd want to have this fancy paper again. And I'm going to put that stuff in a little small box and label it and put it away. And then keep the things that you're actively doing right now. And you can still filter them for, I've evolved past basic supplies. I can let some of these inexpensive supplies go because I'm using better materials now, that kind of stuff. And hopefully shrink out all of the things that you use, all of the crafts that you're not doing, shrink them down to small little containers that you can put away, and then leave your creative space with the things that you're actively doing now. The end.
Excellent. Thank you. Ginger said she uses a bullet journal with the concepts of David Allen's Getting Things Done. And she says, I had great success when I told myself, do it now for many things. I've slowly moved away from that. I've started again. All those little jobs that don't take long to do. And David Allen specifically says, and this may be especially in the context of, desk work, paperwork, accounting work, and so forth. If you can do something in 2 minutes or less, do it. Don't put it on a list. Just do it. When you're working your way through your process of sorting inputs, if you've collected a basket full of things that need your attention and you're working your way through to put things on a to-do list, when you find one that's going to, take a minute, reply to the email that just needs response to say, yes, I got your email. Thanks. Just do it. Be done with it.
Well, and I will say the only caveat here is, if you're ADHD, then you need to recognize that you do not understand the passage of time. You do not register the passage of time well. And so it's either now or not now for you, basically. And there's some research that says, you can sort of mentally picture out a week or 2 or 3 weeks, and then it starts, your ability to understand how time is passing fades quickly after that. And and everybody has more or less severe versions of that. If you are ADHD in particular, you just don't understand the passage and concept of time well. And so be careful that you don't think it's going to take 2 minutes and you wake up and it's an hour and a half later, because you have just gone down the rabbit hole and you just keep going and going and going.
Yeah.
So just be careful that your 1 minute is a realistic goal and not a hopeful goal, aspirational goal.
That's a place where a timer would come in very handy. Just a little timer that you set for 2 minutes, and it buzzes at you at the end. And if you're not finished, you admit, okay, I gauged this one wrong. Put it on your to-do list and set it aside, right?
Wow. Yeah, exactly. Because it is definitely, it's not a failure. It's just a function of an ADHD brain that it's been described to me by somebody who is ADHD and also an organizer who gave a lecture, that it's really that you are constantly in the present and you just don't see the passage of time. You don't think of time as a linear event, and you don't have, which is why ADHD people have a hard time getting out of the house on time, because they think it's going to take 10 minutes to do something. It really takes an hour and a half. And so your understanding of time is different than someone who's neurotypical, and you need coping mechanisms to help you. That's why alerts are so important, and reminders and appointments on the calendar. And those are all ways for you to cope with the passage of time when you don't have your own logical sense of linear time movement.
Yeah.
Like I can go through life and go, okay, I can look at this pile and I know I'm not going to be able to get this done in an hour and a half. I'm going to have to cut it down. In the middle of working on it, I can recognize that I'm not going to make my deadline and I need to stop and pivot. And my ability to evaluate that movement of time and expiring time is something that luckily I have, or I wouldn't be able to do my job right. Somebody's ADHD is working against that deficit. And so you have to recognize that and learn the coping mechanisms that will help you manage.
Deborah is really good at pointing out, the obvious technological solution that evades me when it's time to think of it. She says, timers for the win. Hey Siri, set a timer for 2 minutes. And that's a great point for anyone who's on an iPhone. If you have your Siri enabled, you just have to ask. You just say, hey Siri, set a timer for 2 minutes.
And then it will come back and say, your 2 minutes are up. Right. And then you'll be completely surprised, but it will also bring you back to the present, right? It'll bring you back to where you are and how much time has gone by. Good point, Deborah. Thank you. That's always a good one.
Larry, who changed his name after I made fun of his nickname, said, time evaporates so quickly, I can waste 3 hours thinking of doing a 10-minute project.
Yeah, exactly.
I think time is problematic even for non-ADHD people, or maybe it's that ADHD is something, is a continuum on which some people have a little and some people have a lot. I've mentioned before that I can't operate a calendar. I do not have the part of the brain that it requires to correctly operate a calendar. If I put something on a calendar, I will never look again. I will never remember. It is just, I can use electronic calendars to a certain extent, but even electronically, that particular way of organizing and examining time does not work particularly well for me. I'm a list guy.
Right. Yeah, you're a major list guy.
And my list is organized to some extent like a calendar, but it's linear. It's not cyclic. It's here are some days that are coming up, and here are some things that I hope to accomplish on those days. And it's hard to explain how that is different from a calendar,
Yeah. And I exist off my calendar, and like basically if it's on my calendar, that's how I know I'm supposed to do it. And I look at the calendar all day long, every day, to keep me going to clients and keep me in meetings, and it's not foolproof. Occasionally I come home and sit down to have dinner and forget that I had an appointment at 7. It doesn't happen very often. I am good with looking at the calendar and seeing stuff on the calendar. And so everybody does it different, right?
Randy says, I've never been officially diagnosed ADHD, but time management has always been an issue for me. Just this morning, I lost 1.5 hours and forgot about this meeting. Timers and multiple phone alarms are my friends. Yeah, if there's something I'm really worried about missing, I will tell it, put an alert on my Mac and send me an email and send me a text message.
And keep going, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Agatha mentions any Google microphone does set a timer. So I guess good. That's an Android phone or an Alexa. Is Alexa the Google one? I lose track. Which one's? Oh, that's Amazon. Google is something else. Right? Echo? Okay. Yeah.
There you go.
No, that's something else entirely. I
Doesn't
lose
matter.
track.
All of those little talk to you devices will set a timer.
Any of your devices that is designed to listen to voice commands will set a timer for you.
Exactly.
And Kara says, I'm so happy to hear that I'm not the only one that cannot use a wall calendar. Cannot use a calendar well. Sorry, I can't read either apparently today. Okay, we are running out of time, so let us talk briefly about next week. We'll be back at our usual time next week, Tuesday, January 11th, 2022. And Gayle, do you know what that date means?
That would be the happy birthday of Mr. Ed.
Some of us will be a year older when we meet again.
You will have caught up to me again.
And our topic is the world of decluttering can be a confusing realm of competing philosophies, methods, strategies, books, courses, webcasts, podcasts, blogs, apps, and so on. How do we cut through the decluttering clutter to find an approach that works for us? In our next episode, we'll explore several popular approaches to organizing and explain how to choose a strategy that matches your level of motivation, ability, and available time. Join us January 11th at noon US Central Time for Clearing, Decluttering Clutter. Find an approach that works for you. Let's get to the tittle.
Okay. So the tittle this week is called Looking Sideways at Clutter. This week's assignment is to evaluate a few things from your collections in light of the definitions of clutter we've offered in today's webcast. The goal is to look at familiar things from an unfamiliar perspective. So select 3 or 4 things in your space that make you feel confusion, anxiety, or ambivalence. In other words, you think these things are clutter, but you're not 100% sure. And then ask yourself these questions. What circumstances led to my acquiring this item? Do those conditions still apply in my life now? Does this item embody a past phase of my life, or a source of pain I'm holding on to, or a decision that I've resisted making? Does this thing have a value of, for instance, usefulness, beauty, sense of connection that I'm no longer able or willing to enjoy? Would an objective observer consider this item clutter? How about someone intimately familiar with my tastes and habits? Now make a statement about each item. Is this clutter or treasure? It's also okay to decide you're not ready to decide, but be sure to reflect on why a particular item creates this tension. Hopefully you can ask yourself some of these questions and make a decision that yes, it is clutter, or no, it isn't, and then handle it accordingly. And we'll wait to see how that goes next week.
And Connie suggests that everyone should do the tittle as a birthday present to me.
Yay!
I would like that very
awesome.
much. Yes,
that would be super, super awesome.
If hundreds or thousands of you report back on what you did for my birthday this week. Okay.
I love it.
If you're watching this on YouTube, we would love for you to join us live. To receive notifications about upcoming events, we invite you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You can also follow us on Facebook by visiting cfhou.com/Facebook, or subscribe to our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe. We love to hear from you, so please send us your questions, comments, and topic suggestions on YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere else that you find us. And you can always reach us through our website at clutterfairyhouston.com.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. We know that it's the beginning of the new year and everybody is girding their loins to start getting organized again. We will be here for the journey with you all year long, every week. And so keep coming back and get the support you need to get your projects rolling again, to get yourself decluttered so that we can have a 2022 year of I am organized and decluttered. Woohoo. We will be there with you for it. Okay. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.